This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thank you so much for joining us this Friday, January 29, 2021. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, a mutant strain of the coronavirus making its way to the United States. We've got the warning from public health officials. The president's plan to help Americans in spite of a shrinking economy. And a foreign policy challenge. Is Iran getting closer to developing a nuclear bomb? And later, reflecting on a life well lived, we're remembering acting legend Cicely Tyson. All those stories and more are ahead in today's edition of CBN NewsWatch. We want to begin this half hour with the heightened concern as a new, more contagious strain of the coronavirus has been discovered in the United States. The variant was first detected in South Africa and has now been identified in 2 people in South Carolina. And health officials fear it may be much more widespread. CBN's Eric Phillips has the details.
The 2 cases identified in South Carolina involve people who live in different parts of the state, do not appear to be connected, and have not traveled recently. Health officials are concerned about the South African variant because the COVID vaccines currently on the market may not be as effective against it. Top health officials are speaking in blunt terms about fears over this mutation of the virus.
Well, the one in South Africa, George, troubles me.
My biggest fear at this moment is that these variants are going to take hold and really take off across the United States. And if that happens, we're going to see a huge spike in cases, lots of infections, lots of deaths.
Officials say the strain has the dangerous combination of being more contagious than the original virus and less responsive to current vaccines. What's more, there are signs that some virus mutations may elude COVID tests, now being used widely, and may be less susceptible to antibody treatment. Scientists are acting quickly in case a booster shot becomes necessary for Americans.
We're going ahead already now and trying to stay a step or 2 ahead of things by making vaccines along the same type that we made for the ones we're giving now, but having it be directed specifically against the isolate that's in South Africa.
In addition to the South African isolate, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has reported at least 315 cases of the UK-discovered variant in the United States. Those reports have come from at least 28 states, and health officials believe it could become the dominant strain in the U.S. by March. Also, health officials in Minnesota reported finding the Brazilian variant of the virus earlier this week. Health officials also worry that if the virus changes enough, people might get COVID-19 a second time. This, as January is the deadliest month on record for the pandemic.
It's still a very serious situation. Now's the time to double down.
Doubling down means being sure to follow the standard safety precautions, wearing masks, social distancing, washing hands, and getting the vaccine as soon as you can, which may not be easy with demand far outweighing supply. The Biden administration working to get millions of more doses in the system and expand distribution centers across the country, beefing up the numbers of medical workers who can administer the shots. Still, with all that, there's a stark reality.
It will be months before everyone who wants a vaccine will be able to get one.
The White House is predicting some 90,000 Americans will die next month alone because of the virus. The CDC is recommending that Americans avoid travel. Eric Phillips, CBN News.
For the first time since the Great Depression, the U.S. economy shrank last year. The Biden administration is working on its plan to help Americans, but it comes with a hefty price tag, $2 trillion. Caitlin Burke is on the story.
President Joe Biden is preparing to spend big. His goal, to rescue Americans and the U.S. economy from the COVID-19 pandemic. The question remains, is he spending too much?
They cannot watch people lose their jobs, and we have to act. We have to act now.
The Biden administration's nearly $2 trillion rescue package would pump money into vaccine deployment, reopening schools, funding state and local governments, and of course, putting money directly into the hands of Americans. It's a steep price tag, but Biden says the nation can't afford anything less.
You know, I know what I just described does not come cheaply, but failure to do so will cost us dearly.
Economists agree getting out of the pandemic is the first step towards economic recovery. Where they don't agree begins from that point on. By some estimates, Biden has proposed close to $11 trillion in long-term spending plans. investing in healthcare, infrastructure, energy, and education over the next decade.
President Biden promises massive new spending, most of which, frankly, is the proper priority of state governments. So he wants to expand education spending and transportation spending. But that's why we have state governments. We don't need the federal government increasing spending on that.
Those are all spaces where we have lacked adequate investment for a long time, not just 4 years, longer than that. You need to try to make up for the investments that have been neglected over time. Those are specific areas of spending that I do think it's important to do.
A third of that new spending would be courtesy of more than $3.5 trillion in new taxes, including reversing Trump's tax cuts for large corporations and high-earning families, along with some new taxes. Critics say the tax hikes would hurt the economy, including many smaller businesses, at a time when we can't afford it.
President Biden wants to raise taxes not to reduce the deficit, but to increase spending. So I think this would be a death spiral for the economy. Higher taxes would damage growth, and that would push debt ever higher compared to the size of the economy.
Chris Edwards, director of tax policy studies at the Cato Institute, predicts it would send big business back overseas.
Big corporations, they don't have to locate in America. If you're building electric cars or you're building semiconductors, you can locate your new factory anywhere. You don't have to invest in the United States. So by raising the corporate tax rate, you'll be driving those new factories and facilities overseas. And ultimately, that is bad for American workers.
Lawrence Kotlikoff, a professor of economics at Boston University, disagrees. He says there are incentives that can lure businesses to invest in the U.S.
That's called 100% expensing. You may also have heard of accelerated depreciation. These are ways to say, look, you, Caitlin, are investing in the U.S., you're going to have to pay a high tax rate. But on the other hand, we're going to give you some money up front.
Some economists also warn that Biden's tax increases will trickle down to the average American. If economic growth slows and businesses don't grow as quickly, the American worker won't make as much money and will end up with a lower standard of living. The almost $28 trillion national debt is another major concern. Austin Goolsbee, a former economic advisor to President Obama and current advisor to Biden, says raising taxes is how we begin to address our debt.
It's going to involve more revenue. It's going to involve tax rates going back to something like the historic rates and historic levels, not the depressed levels that we've seen in the last three and a half years.
Critics say only a decrease in spending will make a difference.
The way to chip away at the federal government debt is simply to lower the growth rate in spending or freeze spending for a few years while the economy recovers. That way we can get this deficit on a downward path.
Biden's economic policies will have to make it through Congress. Budget bills, including tax bills, need 51 votes to pass in the Senate. So each Democrat will have to back any legislation that comes through, or it will need bipartisan support. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
In years past, the annual March for Life brought thousands of people to the National Mall in Washington, D.C., but this year organizers are urging attendees to stay home and watch the event online. A pre-rally concert is set to take place at 11 o'clock this morning, and a rally kicks off at noon. The Rose Dinner Gala will also happen virtually this evening at 7. Tim Tebow is the keynote speaker. Turning overseas at this hour, a dire warning from Israel. Iran could have a nuclear bomb within months or maybe weeks. The stage is being set for a possible military confrontation between these two enemies. So how will the Biden administration handle this foreign policy challenge? Here's CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell.
As the Biden administration seeks a new path with Iran that could bring back the 2015 nuclear deal, Israel is sending its own signals to the regime. IDF Chief of Staff Aviv Kohavi has announced the military will have plans ready to strike Iran's nuclear program.
We're taking care of these plans and developing them during the coming year. Those who decide on carrying them out, of course, are the political leaders, but these plans have to be on the table, existing, ready, and practiced.
Israeli leaders see the 2015 Iran deal as flawed that would only pave the way for the regime to develop a nuclear bomb. For its part, Iran is pushing limits with plans to take uranium enrichment to a level just below weapons grade.
Iran is provoking a conflict. I think a big question is whether President Biden and his team can figure out a way to stop them. Negotiation would be a good way to do it. Nobody wants a war in this region again, but Biden is going to be tested.
Middle East expert Joel Rosenberg says Iran is telegraphing intentions by taking rogue action. The regime recently seized the South Korean tanker and its crew near the Strait of Hormuz. Rosenberg says it's important that Biden and his team of advisors learned from the mistakes of his former boss, such as not including regional players like Israel, the UAE, Bahrain, and the Saudis when negotiating the Iranian nuclear deal.
But also the flaws in the deal that didn't deal with missiles, that didn't deal with terrorism, that didn't deal with any of these other issues, and left all these loopholes.
Loopholes like Iran's widespread use of proxies across the Middle East, such as Hezbollah in Lebanon and Syria, the Houthis in Yemen, and militias in Iraq that have attacked U.S. troops there.
The Iranian art of war is based on fighting on other people's lands by other people's hands.
Israeli Reserve Brigadier General Asaf Orion says the biggest factor shaping the Middle East right now is America's transition of power.
Trump gave the Iranians the impression that he's pretty unpredictable.
According to Orion, the Iranians took extreme caution about launching attacks against the U.S. with Trump in office.
The stage is set for the Biden administration. While we focus on the nuclear as the most severe threat, we shouldn't overlook Iran's dual strategy of doing also indirect proxy warfare across the Middle East.
Rosenberg adds Biden must keep maximum pressure on Iran to create the right conditions to negotiate and avoid war.
All eyes are going to be on Biden. And if he flinches in the light of Iran's intransigence, it's going to be a very troubled season ahead.
And joining us from Jerusalem is Chris Mitchell. Chris, are there signs the Biden administration will include the regional players like Israel when negotiating Iran's nuclear deal?
Well, Ephraim, to a certain extent. For example, in February, it's Mossad chief Yossi Cohen is scheduled to meet with President Biden. But there's concern from some people that it would be sort of a pro forma kind of meeting and that the Biden administration will listen to Israel, but just go along and do what it wants. There are concerns as well and some signals that for those Gulf nations like the UAE and Saudi Arabia, that they may not be listening to them. Right now, they've stopped sales of the F-35 to both of those countries. And there's a concern, I think, from some Middle East observers that there's a tilt away from Israel, from these Sunni Arab nations to Iran, just like it was about 4 years ago. That was the complaint from many that the U.S. is too cozy to Iran.
Now we know there's been the transition of power from President Trump to Biden. Are Iranians more likely to test the Biden administration?
Very much so. In fact, as the report said, they're already testing him. That South Korean tanker was taken. And I think that's the way the Iranians negotiate. They really test, their adversaries, and they're testing the Biden administration now. We also see that right now the same negotiating team that was there in 2015 to sign the Iranian nuclear deal is already back in place under the Biden administration. And really, when they went into those negotiations, Ephraim, they really signaled to Iran that they were willing to actually make more concessions than perhaps even Iran expected. So that's the concern of many people, and certainly why the IDF chief of staff went ahead and made those comments that Israel is willing to go it alone because, for Israel, Ephraim, this is an existential threat. Their survival is on the line with an Iranian nuclear program.
Real quick, less than 30 seconds. What can we expect this evening on Jerusalem Dateline?
Well, we have a story about Israel's biblical heartland, how they're reacting to the Biden administration, an exclusive tour in Yad Vashem, Israel's memorial to commemorate International Holocaust Memorial Day. And finally, Ephraim, we have a story about a 1,400-year-old souvenir by a Christian pilgrim on their way to Bethlehem. That's all in this week's Jerusalem Dateline.
Lots to look forward to. Thank you so much, Chris. I want to remind you at home that you can catch Chris and his entire team on the CBN News Channel for Jerusalem Dateline. It begins at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. Coming up, see why a famous pastor believes churches are the answer to distributing the COVID-19 vaccine. Stay with us.
Christians around the world are standing with the Israelis. But why? In CBN's free magazine, Friends of Israel, you'll discover why Christians are supporting the Jewish state, how Israel is fulfilling prophecy as a light to the nations, and ways you can pray for the people of Israel. Israel needs the support of friends like you. Call now or go to cbn.com to get your free copy of Friends of Israel.
Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the work of your Spirit, Lord God, with this movement of getting the Bible,
yes,
Lord, into public schools.
Watch The Prayer Link, Tuesday nights at 6:30.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Protect your sleep and live your best life with innovative information from 5 leading sleep experts.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
Discover a sleep-enhancing bedtime routine, how to put insomnia to rest, learn how to relieve pain that disturbs sleep, and much more in Protect Your Sleep.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Don't miss out on this brand new series.
As COVID-19 continues to spread, the Black community has seen record cases and fatalities, yet many distrust the vaccine and refuse to take it. That's why, as Charlene Aaron shows us, one prominent pastor is using facts over fear to change hearts and minds.
In an effort to better inform the African American community about the vaccine, Bishop T.D. Jakes brought in big-name experts for an online event called Conversations with America, Understanding the COVID-19 Vaccine. During the nearly hour-long discussion, Jakes asked questions such as whether these experts had any angst about the vaccine over the long term. Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett, the lead scientist on the coronavirus research team, didn't hesitate.
Absolutely no angst at all. You know, one of the things that I think is largely forgotten throughout this is that the first phase 1 clinical trial actually started on March the 16th, which was almost 10 months ago. And so from those people, they've been followed since then, and there are no outcomes for long-term adverse outcomes. Long-term side effects are not something to be worried about.
Much of the concern among Blacks dates back to the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, a 40-year government study involving hundreds of Black men. The men, mostly poor sharecroppers suffering from syphilis, were monitored yet not treated by government health officials. Many died, went blind, or experienced other severe health problems. Dr. Anthony Fauci admitted the skepticism is understandable.
It's a shameful history that we have to just deal with. So whenever I talk to my African American friends and colleagues about getting vaccinated, you always have to show respect for their skepticism and then try to get them to understand why it is safe, it is effective, and it is good not only for your own health, but for your families and your community.
Jakes explained while hard-hit communities of color desperately need the vaccine, access and distribution may be a problem. He suggested using churches and other faith-based groups as a solution.
Is there any thought about getting medical professionals to work through faith-based entities within those local communities where they could go to churches, for instance, and have medical physicians there that could administer the vaccine? Because many of our communities are in food deserts and places like that where they can't get the vaccine.
You could do it by community centers, churches. You mentioned, Bishop, is very important. Faith-based organizations getting involved, but also mobile units to go out into those communities which are not readily accessible.
In the meantime, Jakes says while his conversation provides people with education and knowledge about the shot, he also wishes to offer hope to those affected by the pandemic. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Still ahead, we are looking ahead to the Super Bowl with CBN Sports Director Sean Brown. He joins us next. Stay with us.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us.
Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN NewsWatch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man, come with...
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Countdown is on and the stage is set for Super Bowl 55 in just about a week. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. CBN Sports Director Sean Brown joins us now to talk about what we can look forward to on the field. So, Sean, it's been a long season for all athletes, of course, battling the pandemic. How do you think these two teams will adapt to a less-than-packed stadium?
Hey, good morning, Ephraim. Hey, man, it's that time. I'm excited. I know you're excited. Hey, first of all, teams have been playing in these conditions all season. So in terms of playing in less than packed stadiums, at this point, they're kind of used to it. I'm more worried about their nerves. You know, it's their nerves settling because this is the biggest game of their careers. And so it's really the nerves, not so much the fans. The quarterbacks would probably appreciate it because they can hear. A lot of times in certain stadiums, you can't really hear very well. And so there's at least going to be 22,000 fans at Raymond James, which is about a third capacity that they're used to, hosting in that stadium. And so there will be fans there. And hey, that's actually going to fuel this game. It's better than no fans. And so, yeah, they're used to it. So it's going to be good. But it's their nerves. They got to settle down and be poised in the biggest game in their careers.
Well, I feel all eyes has been on Tampa Bay for the entire season. So why is this game so significant for that team?
Hey, Ephraim, this is the first time in, I believe, 55 years that a team has played in their home stadium for the Super Bowl. The last time it happened was Super Bowl 19, where it was the Miami Dolphins versus the 49ers. You had Dan Marino and Joe Montana going at it. And so, yeah, usually, teams have to travel very far. Their fans have to travel. But it's very convenient when you're playing in your home stadium because your fans don't have to travel very far. and they're more inclined to buy tickets. And so that's somewhat of an advantage for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So very, very, very unique situation. I'm interested to see how that's going to play out, but very exciting, and big up to them for that.
All right, less than 30 seconds. Who are you predicting?
Chiefs all the way, man. Hey, you know, even with home advantage, the Chiefs are explosive. I'll get into more of that next week, but their offense is just so unique. And I'm excited about the way that they gel together, the way they find each other on the field and have each other's backs, man. But again, I'll be talking a lot about that next week. So I'm going to go Chiefs, man. Chiefs for me.
I'm right there with you, 100%. Thank you so much, Sean.
You got it.
Still to come, we are remembering an acting legend right here, the legendary Cicely Tyson. More on her life and legacy coming up right after this.
Are you suffering from feeling tired or worn out during the day? Can you not turn off your brain at night? You are not alone. Hi, I'm Dr. Michael Bruce, the sleep doctor, and I've partnered with the Christian Broadcasting Network, and we're going to bring you some unbelievable information that you can use tonight to get a better night's rest.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free copy of Protect Your Sleep today.
Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson.
Talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living, Tuesday night at 9:30.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man, come.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Tributes continue pouring in for the pioneering actress Cicely Tyson. She gained an Oscar nomination for her role as the sharecropper's wife in Sounder. She won a Tony Award at 88 years old and touched television viewers' hearts in the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman. Tyson's death was announced Thursday by her manager, who did not provide any additional details. She was 96 years old and had just released her autobiography. It is titled Just As I Am. Glad to say I got to meet her and show her to her seat as a page at Saturday Night Live. Time now for your Friday Faithful. I want to leave you with this message as we wrap another week together. Planning is good, but it's always best to follow God's plan. Your good plan will never quite measure up without Him. Here's the bottom line. I'd rather have a God plan than a good plan any day of the week. With that word, make this a fabulous Friday and be sure to have yourself a wonderful weekend. That will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you right back here come Monday. Goodbye, everybody, and God bless.